Hey, who's on the cell phone?
Hello. What is going on here? What the heck? I'm having a technical issue. Come on. I can't.
What I can do is just you mute yours and you should be able to talk through yours. What's up, Hunter?
How you doing? Doing all right?
Yep, doing good.
Good.
Somebody messaged me earlier about truckers on Walnut Street.
Oh, really?
I'll read it to you. Yeah, I told Brian the other day, we still need to follow up and get a discussion with Dillon's, Walmart, whoever else. We got to find parking for these guys.
They keep on, I've been seeing more of them go back to Walmart, and Walmart was cracking down on it for a while, and now I guess they must lost.
Well, I talked to the manager, and they were just gonna allow it until they caused a problem because of the backlash they were getting a little bit.
I know Dugan put those fiberglass things with the cinder blocks, concrete cinder blocks, and those have been bashed.
What's that meeting number?
Okay, I'll give it to you. 779 525 1171. Thank you.
With that.
There you go. And can't find a holder for you. You can, I think you can flip it on. the
Yeah, she
side.
said they were driving over the corner at Walnut, or over the curb. The truckers are. So I just got another message about truckers on Walnut, like running over the curb and stuff. So now we've got somebody on Walnut, 215th.
Yeah, and
I don't know what we can do. I mean, and I talked to somebody just the other day, and they said the Cunningham, it's full over there too. So that could be the issue. It's not like they don't want to stay there, but you know how truckers work. One day is the next day. They got to be probably at the location the time of or something. That's probably like they're staging here for Dillon. I don't. Is it Dillon stuff? Do we even?
I would venture a guess that 8 or 9 out of 10 of them are.
Yeah.
What I have heard is the majority of them are coming from Dillon's, and the reason why is Dillon's don't let them into their lot because they're scheduled for certain strict times and coming in for their deliveries. So if they came, sometimes they might be 2-3 hours early, and they say, well, you go find a place until you can come in.
And they'll also, as I understand it, because Chief has handled this, but they'll allow the Dillon's drivers in, but not the contract drivers in.
That's correct, I think. Yeah.
And that's a new practice so that they're kind of working with
Can we
us.
let them do street parking on one of the frontage roads and do a one-way road or Crown Drive or something?
Well,
And then we could kick them out of every area.
they used to go on Casado and Martins,
Oh,
but with the construction there for the new homes, we ended up having,
they could park could they park on the north? I know it's all no parking, but could they park on the north side where there's no businesses? Just that one little metal building.
yeah, I don't know. We should talk about that though.
I mean, I'll open whatever we can figure out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure it out.
Yep.
It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, I know. What's up, Fred? How you doing?
Doing well. How about you?
Good. I saw that Explorer in the Renew parking garage today.
Oh, yeah?
Well, mute. When you talk, you should be able to hear it on the radio.
I'll share this and that might help.
Okay. I think it was just his iPad. Okay. You say something, make sure you can hear it.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
Okay. We don't want to hear that feedback the whole time. Brent, you probably like this Zoom stuff, don't you? Everybody's on mute.
Were you talking to Brent?
Yeah.
Are you in Atwood, Brent?
Looks like he's driving. Brian gave me something long to read. Let me stutter through this.
oh. Yeah, I don't know. One of my ideas on the truckers was just south. They own a part of their lot still. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad to go in and kind of pave or work something out to where they can stay.
I
Those
guess-
ones that they're not wanting.
Chief and Brian and Brooke want to kind of drive around town and find out locations that we could.
There's the boss.
You like that steering wheel?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Isn't that sexy?
A hard working councilman.
Oh, shoot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'm gonna go ahead and read the introduction, then we'll get started with the meeting. This council meeting is unusual because of the COVID-19 virus. Because of the government's stay-at-home order, all members of the governing body and staff are not in the same room. We're using an online meeting program called Zoom that allows us to be in different places and participate as well in all council chambers of the City Hall. All of the requirements for Kansas Open Meeting Act are still in effect during the online meeting. The Attorney General has given us guidelines to follow in online meetings. We'll be making sure all of those guidelines are being followed up, even though we are online. Meeting rules for public comment. The Open Meeting Act requires that we allow the public to observe the meeting. It does not require the public to be given an opportunity to participate in the meeting. However, it is our policy that we give the public opportunity to present comments to the council at the beginning of our meeting. Hey, Brent, do you want to mute your phone? With that in mind, yeah. With that in mind, here are the guidelines for participating in the Zoom format. During the meeting, everyone will be muted, so any conversation on your part will not be interrupted by another person's presentation. On the bottom of your screen is a taskbar that has a number of icons. And it appears when you move the mouse. On an iPad, it will appear at the top of the screen. If you have some other device, you will need to experiment to find the taskbar to be able to talk. There is a participant icon in the middle of the taskbar that you can press, and it will show who is present in the meeting. You may want to, however, cover your name and change it. If your name pops up as iPad Joe, we ask that you change it to your proper name. At the bottom of the participant page is a blue raised hand. By pressing the raised hand, it will appear next to your name at the top of the participant's page. The raised hand will indicate you wish to speak. The mayor will recognize you and you will be unmuted. The Attorney General's online guidelines require that all participants give in their name before speaking. All of us will be doing the same. For the record, please state your name and address. When you speak, we expect good decorum. In our opinion, you vary from that, we will mute your microphone and ask that you behave appropriately. That won't be an issue with our category. If after a warning, we unmute your mic and you return to the same behavior, we will mute you again and remove you from the meeting. You will not be allowed back in. We are recording this meeting. A copy will be placed on our website and on Facebook and YouTube. When we get the public comment part of the agenda, I will remind everyone of the key principles that I just stated. Now let's get started with the meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
bow your heads for prayer. Just ask that the governing body come together, though remotely, we can still come together and help grow our community. Please guide us to help the citizens and bring us all together and grow the city and keep functioning as well. In your name we pray. Amen. And may the fourth be with you. I had to work that in today, guys. Sorry. Okay. We'll wait for Terry to kick us off. Okay, if everybody got a chance to look at the agenda, we will have you approve it as presented. Any questions, please let me know.
Motion to approve.
Second by Proctor.
I got Larry. I'm sorry, he motioned. I had mine on mute. So we got motion by Hunter and a second by Larry. All those in favor, aye.
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 Okay, hi Sarah, you made it. I just got your text. Okay. Motion carry. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Now we're ready for item D, citizen comments.
Okay. So anybody wanting to speak at this time, we'll give everybody about a minute to raise your hand. And Brian, you allow them in, is that right, or do I allow them in?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, we're having a platform issue at Master Control here. Mr. Mayor, we have no citizens wishing to speak at this time.
Okay, we will continue on the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Item F is the consent agenda. Item F contains the minutes from the regular meeting of April 20th, 2020, and accounts payable April 23rd for $40,466.02, and April 30th, 2020 for $84,688.42.
Okay, everybody get a chance to look at the financials and the consent agenda? And if everything looks good, look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve by Hunter, second by Larry. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item G, old business, there is none. New business, item H1 is a resolution offering the sale for general obligation bond series 2020-02 to finance the Star Bond District infrastructure improvements. Background on this item, the city committed to infrastructure improvements through a development agreement and a Star Bond agreement with Kansas State Department of Commerce. On May 16th, the council adopted resolution 1607 authorizing the project. The notes were issued on June 6th of that year at an interest rate for temporary notes of 1.21% with a July 1st, 2018 expiration. In May of 2018, the council unanimously authorized extending that sale by the statutorily maximum 2-year allowance. And on June 4th, that temporary note extension for an additional 2 years was placed with Emprise Bank at an interest rate of 2.22% with payments occurring on or before January 1 and July 1 of each year. That included the capitalized interest that's noted in the additional background material. These notes mature on July 1st of 2020, and the original payment for this issuance was $760,000, which includes the capitalized interest cost of the original series. What this resolution does is authorizes a solicitation of offers for private placement of AA- general obligation bonds in an amount, a principal amount of $835,000. $768,436 is the par amount of the bonds, with $33,977.26 in capitalized interest that would occur for fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2022. $32,566 is issuance and regulatory costs. Interest charges would be determined by the placement offer that the council will accept at the June 1st regular city council meeting. Payments made concurrent with other general obligation bonds in the city that concur with the April and October term. So the duration of this bond would be from 2020 to 2042. However, these notes are redeemable or callable after July 1st of 2027. This resolution further authorizes Gilmore and Bell as bond counsel and Stiefel Nichols and Company, formerly George K. Baum, as financial representative, and as well as authorizing the mayor and city staff to complete the terms of the bond resolution and evidence of the formal governing body action, to prepare and approve a preliminary official statement, provide notice for the sale for private placement, and take the necessary actions to complete the terms of the bond sale prior to the June 1st, 2020 city council action accepting said bonds or said offers. Again, this essentially rolls the temporary notes for the Crown Drive and Grand Slam Way, as well as the water mains and sewer mains and the paving street water infrastructure that's currently in place. All of the out parcels where the construction is currently underway, as well as the far western portion of Goddard Galleria, could utilize the primary sewer main and water mains that are located there. This resolution was constructed by the City Bond Counsel, Kevin Cowan, who is available on this call. And we also have Brett Sjogren of Stiefel available here to answer questions as well. City Attorney Ryan Peck approves this as to form. And if there are no questions from the professionals present or staff, we recommend adoption.
I've got a stupid question, I guess. Like on this, should we ever choose to just make payments so we're not paying capitalized interest? Because either way, if the general taxes, the property taxes of that area pay for it or not, it's still costing us more money. I mean, do we ever Like, do we ever consider like just making some kind of payments so we're not paying capitalized interest?
We have, and we did look at that, but given that it's still under construction, it would essentially be coming from the city at large. So there essentially we would be taking from the existing property owners, where the intent has always been that as the primary beneficiary, the property taxes of the district should cash flow the improvement so that we're not taking away from the tax dollars of the rest of the city.
Okay, because I see it like if we paid it now, it's still, the property taxes of that area, it would still be less money, wouldn't it? Because they would, if they owed 50,000 a year in property taxes and the loan amount was 40,000 or whatever, wouldn't we still have $10,000 more a month for our tax? I mean, for everybody.
I'm not exactly following, because the capitalized interest amounts approximately 35,000.
Okay, so it's not that much.
Correct.
So, okay. That was my only question. I just didn't know if we ever had a choice to pay it, because regardless of who pays it, it's still saving the city money. It's money.
We did, and I can defer to Mr. Sjogren to explain that in greater detail.
Yeah, Brian, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Brett Sjogren with Stiefel Nicholas and Company, formerly George K. Baum and Company. And Brian's exactly right. And Mr. Mayor, you bring up a good point. There obviously is an option to just pay the interest rather than utilize capitalized interest. Most of the time, due to timing and budgeting period requirements and challenges, usually capitalized interest is used. I think in this case, the idea is to capitalize the interest for a period of almost 2 years in order to get some of those property tax revenues online and sort of build up the assessed valuation, which generates those tax dollars. Allow some time for those to come online. You can choose to pay that initially up front, but you would have to find budget dollars within your budget to make that payment. And that's certainly an option, but to do capitalized interest, it does cost a little bit because you're paying interest on those dollars for a period of 2 years. But it's not that much in the grand scheme of things. But that was the idea, was to allow a couple of years to get the assessed valuation to grow, which was the purpose of that project.
Okay, but we've been paying, just to clarify, we've been paying interest for 4 years, and it'll be additional 2, so it'll be 6 total, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's structured so that, again, the site itself,
Yeah, I
with
understand.
its improvements, will cash flow that rather than the city at large.
That's what I was going to point out, because I like what you said, Brett. You can track that. The development's paying for itself, and that's probably why we do it too. I understand. Anybody else have any questions? I just wanted to clarify a few of those and just questions I had myself.
If I may, can I clarify one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
In a previous slide, I think it was stated that this is going to be a private placement. And I think Brian maybe saw the legal documents, and there is a publication of a notice of private placement, and that's due to the sizing of the bond issue. These will actually be a public sale. We are going to be taking bids from underwriters from throughout the country to get the best possible interest rate from the best possible bid. The notes that we're retiring were a private placement, but this will be a publicly sold general obligation bond. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Explain the difference, just so we know what is the difference. Why are we doing it different now?
Well, the private placement aspect is when you solicit proposals from usually local banks to buy the whole thing and use it as an investment for the bank. And usually due to size and length of the short-term temporary notes and the size of them being under $1 million, And the fact that they're bank qualified, if they're under $10 million and we can designate them as bank qualified, it's a really good opportunity for the banks. We're doing a public sale this time because this is a 22-year bond issue, and it is very difficult to find one buyer who wants to invest in that whole thing for 22 years.
I got you. Yeah, because
Typically, bond issues that are structured like this, we do public sales, and that's what we've done with the city in the past.
okay, thank you. And I guess right now is a great time to be refinancing these too, I'd assume.
Yes, interest rates are pretty low. Just to give a little bit of an update with the COVID-19 that's been going around. It threw our market in chaos for a little bit. Through March and part of April, there was not really much of a primary market to sell these bonds to. It's somewhat calmed down. It's not totally back to where it was before, but we are still very near lowest of interest rates in history. We're not quite at the bottom, but we're pretty close to it. So it is a good time.
Okay, good. Thank you, Brett.
Yes, thank you.
So do we need a motion?
Yep. No other questions?
Yes, please.
We'll look for a motion to waive the reading on the resolution.
Motion to waive, Proctor.
Okay, motion by Michael.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Hunter. All those in favor, voice vote? Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. No, look for a, go back to slide. Look for a, we need a roll call, don't we? And
Not for a resolution.
okay, sorry.
Well, we need a motion to adopt the resolution now. So I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Sarah, second by Hunter. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item H2, Public Works lawnmower replacement purchase.
Honorable Mayor and Council. H2 is for the purchase of, can you all hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can, Brett.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a little trouble logging in, so I didn't know if everyone can hear me. Okay, anyway, H2 is for the purchase of riding lawnmowers for Public Works. Little background of this item, we currently have 2 big dog mowers that are both a decade or just a slightly over that older. They're starting to be well worn, and we're experiencing quite a few mechanical issues on those mowers. One of the mowers is currently out of service and has been for a few months. The repair bill, unfortunately, is higher than the mower's book value at this time. Right now, they're spending a lot of time in the shop being repaired because of that age and wear on them. Next slide, please. When we went looking for mowers, we reviewed 5 different manufacturers from a couple different dealerships. The results are listed in the table below. We tried to pick mowers with 72-inch decks, gasoline engines that all fit pretty much the same set of specifications. Next slide, please. Can we go back one, please? Thank you. After reviewing and forward, please, one. I'm sorry. There we go. After reviewing and testimony with each of the mowers, we chose the Exmark Laser ZE series sold by Kansas Golf and Turf. We chose this mower based on its capabilities, warranty, serviceability, and cost. Next slide, please. The Exmark Laser ZE series mowers have a 0 turn radius, a 24.5 horse gasoline engine, and equipped with a 72-inch deck. They also come with a 3-year, 800-hour warranty, which is nice for us because we put anywhere between 150 and 300 hours on a mower a year, depending on the weather and how many times the grass grows, how many times it needs mowed. Next slide, please. The financials on this, the Exmark also happened to be the least expensive of all the mowers we chose. It was definitely not the cheapest, but it was the least expensive. Each mower, we're asking for 2 mowers. Each mower costs $9,774 for a total cost of $19,548. This cost will be allocated 100% to the equipment reserve fund. Next slide, please. A little more continuation of the financials, just kind of give the council an idea of what the equipment reserve fund looks like right now. We currently have a $724,262 balance. We have $108,873 for the encumbered for the fleet trucks we ordered right before the COVID started. Unfortunately, they won't be here for a while because of that. Which leaves us an unencumbered balance of $615,389. The equipment reserve fund will also receive an additional $48,750 in transfers in the 2020 fiscal year. So it doesn't, the $19,000 that we're requesting is not going to have a huge impact on this fund. Next slide, please. There were no legal considerations per se on this. We are recommending that the city council approve the purchase of 2 Exmark Laser ZE series lawnmowers from Kansas Golf and Turf for a total cost of $19,549. This would be a voice vote. Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
So we've got a new business coming in. It's Goddard Outdoor Power. I know they're not open yet, but has anybody reached out to them about, I know they have other locations, about maybe trying to purchase them from them, someone who's local?
I was not, unfortunately, Hunter, I was not aware that they were moving into the town. Or else we definitely would have looked at them. Some of these mowers with government contracts, we have to reach out to certain dealers, unfortunately, to get those good deals. And I'm unaware if they have government contract. If I knew they were moving into town, I most definitely would have given them an opportunity to bid and looked at their mowers.
I would, my only opinion is that we at least reach out to them. I mean, I want to keep as much business as we can local, and I'd like to see us as a city kind of contribute to that. So if someone would maybe contact them and see if it's even feasible, maybe it's not because of the government contracts, but it's at least with a phone call.
Absolutely. And what was the name of the business again, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
It's
please.
it's the
This is
old
the first
Goddard
we're hearing
Gunnery.
of it.
Oh, it's the old, okay, that's who's moving into there. I was not aware of that. Okay.
Yeah, Goddard Outdoor Power.
Okay. Do you know what brands they sell by chance?
I don't know, to be honest with you. And then don't we have another outdoor power dealer?
We
off
do.
of
We have,
199.
we have Johnson's. Unfortunately, they don't hold the government contracts for these, so
Okay.
they were several $100,000 per unit hire.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe they haven't established business yet, so they're not open entirely, but just reaching out and giving them a phone call probably would be a good thing.
Oh, I definitely can do that. Absolutely. I like
Okay.
to do business local as well.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you're muted.
Thank you. Okay, I seen that you had that Spartan mower. I knew that was a pretty good mower. Did you choose this one here, the ZE, because of the warranty?
Well, they've all had decent warranties. The Spartan mower had a lot of bells and whistles that weren't necessary to our operation. And our concern was that as those bells and whistles run out
Great.
or wear out, it's going to increase repair costs.
Yeah.
And touch pads to start them and whatnot are not needed. And that's just another thing to break. We went with sturdy and simple and should be reliable.
Okay. And then I had a question about the equipment reserve fund. Is that something we deplete every year to try and do improvements, or how much balance do we want to have in that for the next year?
That would probably be a better question for Matt to answer. I know we're not depleting it, to my knowledge.
No, we historically have put we put transfers in there every year, and we've built up a considerable balance over time. I don't anticipate anything coming down the line that would deplete that fund balance anytime soon. As far as like, we don't have a specific policy on it. We have used it in recent years to purchase equipment that we haven't in the past. That we have equipment within the last couple of years, larger ticket items that we have not in the past, but typically we use it for smaller ticket items like the mowers.
Okay. I was just wondering, like at the end of the year, I know when we bought water meters, when I ran the numbers, it didn't seem like we had near enough water meters going in those new ones. And if we wanted to do like a big purchase, if we had money left over, if that's something we wanted to consider, I thought I had.
Well,
Yeah, we've used that. We could use that. We also have a healthy fund balance in the water reserve fund that we have earmarked some of those for buying a big chunk of meters to start that replacement program as well.
Okay.
and one item to note, we have 2 aged dump trucks that'll be several $100,000 once we do go to replace, even used. So, that's something that where we always try and keep at a minimum $500,000 in there, if not more, depending upon what's lined up.
Okay.
Because if we ever need to go replace the, I believe 20 years old is our youngest dump truck. The other is so old that they can't even fabricate parts unless we do it almost in-house.
Yeah.
They're both quite old. They're still in decent functioning shape, but it is something we need to think about for the future.
Okay. Did you guys hear Larry?
Can you repeat that, sir, please?
Backhoe purchase replacement schedule, do you know when that might be, Brooke? I believe that's what Councilmember Zimmerman asked.
Louder police cars.
Police cars are funded through the general fund. We don't use reserve funds for those. They're programmed in because they're replaced so regularly. We include them in their annual budget. And as far as backhoe purchase, we'll be putting more updated information together on that, and you'll see a updated capital improvement program this month that we can discuss the timeline for purchasing backhoes.
That would be the best way to do it, man. Yes, and when it comes time to purchase backhoe, something we're gonna look into as well as leasing. It may not fit us. It may be more expensive, but it's worth looking into at the time when it comes.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll look for the motion to approve the mowers and note that Brooke will make a local phone call just to see if they can match that.
I guess, does Brooke have to, if Wichita, if Goddard Outdoor Power, if they can match it, does he have to come back to us, or can you just go ahead and do it?
It depends upon how the motion is made, Councilmember Larkin. This is Brian. If your motion is for us to come back to you, then you would make a motion to table, and then it would require a second, and then debate or vote by the governing body. If you would like to make the approval subject to Brooke reaching out, and then we can report back at the May 18th council meeting as to whether or not they can match it, and that's where the purchase would come from, or if we would just go ahead and proceed with the order as presented.
Yeah, I would like to, can we just move that we're going to purchase lawnmowers, that brand, and just leave out the company name for the total cost? Wouldn't that
Yeah,
cover-
I think that's
Yes,
good.
yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll motion to approve, the purchase of the Exmark Laser series lawnmowers from a vendor that can, I guess, a vendor that can provide them
at the cost of the 19.
at the cost of $19,549.
Motion by Hunter,
Second by Leland.
Second by Sarah. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Get some new mowers. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, council. Appreciate it.
Item H3, presentation of first quarter 2020 departmental reports.
This is Terry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Okay. For the first quarter of 2020, the staff presented 34 agenda items, opted for ordinances and 6 resolutions. And staff prepared over 570 pages in briefing materials and agendas for 7 sessions of the city council meeting. Next slide. The city currently has 31 full-time employees with 1 employee on deployment. Sick hours remain about the same as the first quarter last year, and vacation and overtime hours are down. Next slide, please. We currently have 1,865 water customers, 1,798 sewer customers, and the balance of bad debt has been increasing over the last 4 years, and I anticipate that it will probably get worse in the next 3 months. Next slide. Municipal court. These numbers are with 1 less court date in March, and the next court date is not set until June 9th.
Terry, this is Brian. I'm sorry. There's a lot of feedback for some reason.
I'm catching that.
Is everyone else hearing feedback when I speak, or is it only when Terry speaks?
Terry, Terry, do you have your speakers on?
Terry.
Yes.
Terry, do you have your speakers on?
Yes.
Yeah, you might be able to turn those down. Turn your speakers down, and that should stop it. You won't be able to hear us, but we should be able to hear you without an echo.
Is that any better?
Much better, thank you.
Terry, or your computer?
That's all I had unless there's other questions.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Terry.
Chief Ferris will present next.
Good evening. This is the quarterly report, first quarter for the PD. It's going to be pretty uneventful and exciting, but we'll get through it. Next slide, please. Obviously, we've seen a drop in some activity in Goddard and across the county due to COVID-19. We've been getting regular, all the chiefs and the sheriff do a weekly conference call similar to this, and what we're seeing is really a drop in overall calls for service, but a spike in certain other ones. Surprisingly, I went back and looked at our numbers, and we've remained relatively the same across the board. So we're not seeing a lot of those spikes that are occurring in other parts of the county. Goddard officers were given the guidance to use common sense, utilize personal protective equipment when appropriate, but I wanted them to remain at least visible in the community. So essentially, I didn't really care that they were out there stopping, large number of cars, but they did need to remain visible and use common sense. We also had the added wrinkle of having 2 new officers that are in field training. And obviously that's our time to make sure they know what they're doing and have the experience before we turn them loose on the streets by themselves. So their field training officers have really done a really good job of trying to keep them busy and expose them to as many, variety of calls as they could during this time. Next slide, please. Here's the first quarter numbers. And like I said, really, they've remained pretty consistent even from last year. So we're not seeing those big spikes. You'll notice that the outside agency is probably higher than what you've seen in the past. And that's largely because we were not reporting those prior to our RMS system and changing some internal policies. Now I want the officers actually taking a report number when we do go out to back the county or another agency, just so I have some awareness of how much of that we're actually doing. Next slide. Traffic accidents, again, have remained pretty consistent, total of 13 in the first quarter. As you can tell, again, over 50% of them are along US 54. And I'm sure most of you can guess where those occur at. 199th, 183rd, 167th. Those are our kind of big areas on 54. Next slide. Community involvement, as you can see, it's coming soon. We have not been able to do anything. The schools have been out of service since April. Most of the businesses that we would be interacting with, the restaurants, things like that for Coffee with Cops are non-operational, or at least the drive-through. So it's made it very difficult. We're really looking forward to getting things back to normal so we can get out in the community now that the weather's getting nicer. And I think we feel, the officers do feel that. We did today participate in a birthday drive-by parade for a young man over at in one of the suburbs. Us in the fire department did a drive-by parade for him and his family to celebrate his birthday. And that's really about all we've been able to do is small things like that. Next slide. Some of the highlights from the first quarter. Probably the biggest thing is our partnership with Wichita PD. They were awarded a grant a couple of years ago to institute a license plate reader program. All of those actually are mobile units, so they're mounted to police cars and they're capturing data, running tags and things like that with the mobile units. And they approached me about a year and a half ago and asked if I'd be interested in trying to become part of their program. What that entails essentially is they're providing us with all the equipment. We're allowing them to use the traffic lights at 167th Street, east and westbound, which will read the tags of traffic going those directions. This is about $100,000 worth of equipment that didn't cost us a thing, but it's going to greatly enhance our ability to apprehend criminal activity, investigate crime, recover missing persons, Amber Alerts, anything that's in the national computer. And we can filter out, all the cars will have will be logged into that system. So anything driving around in Goddard, any of our police cars driving around that are logged in would get those alerts from those cameras and be able to follow up and make their own case on that. 2 new officers did graduate the academy. They're nearing completion of their field training program. And we are currently conducting a hiring process to fill 1 vacant position, but we're just going to do the process right now. We'll wait and see what June financials look like for Matt and Brian before we make any kind of an offer. Because quite honestly, getting the 2 new officers out on the street is going to help us. But we're not in dire straits right now. So we'll wait and see and get the guidance from Brian on that. Next slide.
Is the hiring, is that the open position we have, or what is it? Or is
It's an open position for Lamar resigning and taking a job with the school district.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a question on, okay, you had like 113 outstanding warrants. Is that just total warrants forever that, city violations or whatever? And when do you guys ever purge those? Can you explain?
They're purged. I'd have to defer to Kathy on when she actually purges those. I want to say it's 5 years, maybe 5 or 7 years. We're actually going to go through that entire pile and look and to see if there's some ways that maybe we can get some of those folks that come in voluntarily, the thing with us is most of ours are court appearance warrants. So we don't have really a lot of latitude to go, okay, if you'll just pay the original fine, almost all of our fines are mail in anyway, but those that do have warrants are generally because they failed to appear in court on something. So we're looking at some ways to maybe try to clean that up a little bit, but that's not really an exorbitant number, to be honest with you. So I'm not terribly concerned about it, but again, that really kind of falls under the court clerk's purview.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
The next item will be City Planner Micah Scoggin reviewing the first quarter community development.
Thank you, Brian, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to be looking at building permits first, and this is generally what it looks like. We're actually doing better this quarter than we did last year's quarter, which is interesting given the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, for multifamily homes, we haven't seen a whole lot increase in that. Those 12 that we see in 2019 for last quarter were all in the Easy Living Medical Lodge. I'll leave this up for about a couple seconds, but I'm ready to go next slide when Brian's ready. So yeah, reiterating, we were up, that 22% looks high, but obviously these are low numbers, so it's kind of skews it a little bit, but we are up over last year's quarter one, which is nice. And, with all the platting we did with those subdivisions and the fact that we're adding in Rustic Creek, I expect that our year over year, everything else remaining the same, no more pandemics, we should be doing pretty well. So I'll go next slide. So yeah, just kind of briefly mentioning that from the residential development side, Elk Ridge subdivision, St. Andrew subdivision has continued to fill, and phase 3 of Elk Ridge has sold its first lot. So that was pretty nice. And 227 Cedar Street is working on pulling a building permit for the threeplex that's approved for the rezoning. I think they're working on the financing right now. Cloverleaf is going through the pre-construction phase now. So they're still working on developing some of these lots. I know Paul Kelsey in particular had a kind of a new idea for a design part of some of these lots, and that's going to require some review and some planning review and possibly approval by the planning commission. So we'll just have to see what he's proposing there. But all things are moving forward. I haven't seen that big of a lapse on any of the residential side of things.
Hey, Mike, I just want to mention on the Cedar Street, over there on Second, how that street's all beat up. When we choose to rebuild that, I want to make sure that when they build that their big construction trucks or whatever they get in there don't tear the dirt road again. So I just wanted to kind of mention that and look out for it. And I don't know, just to make sure that we don't put a bunch of money into the road now and then construction comes through and they tear it up again. So
sure, absolutely. Yeah, we'll be working with Brooke on that one for sure to try to keep an eye on it. Obviously, it's since it's right up the street, it's not like it can go unnoticed. So we'll be keeping an eye on it. So but yeah, it's a very good point, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely. Next slide. So commercial, yeah, Star Bond, as everyone knows, is moving forward, which is great for us. Obviously, people as citizens and other people outside the city as well, even other commercial businesses, notice that the walls are going up and they're seeing that continued construction and they're all interested in it. So that's really good for us. As previously mentioned by Mr. Larkin, the Goddard Gunnery has moved locations and a new tenant, the Goddard Outdoor Power, has moved into that location. Tanganyika Wildlife Park is moving forward with new splash park, and hopefully it'll be open soon. But actually, according to my wife, they already are open. So that's pretty exciting, especially for my 5-year-old. Next slide. So this is just kind of a quick review of what we had in Planning Commission for Q1 2020. There's usually kind of a gap in there for me typically, because you're going to see one planning commission will be packed out, the next one will be smaller, and the next planning commission will be packed out. That's because we have these publications that are required by state law, which requires 20 days elapsed notice before we even have another planning commission for particular items. So you'll see this big dip in up and down for planning commission items. Next slide. That's it for me. I'll open up for questions if you guys have any questions, but if not.
I just want to note, I know that I look back on Terry's numbers from last year to this year, about 90 homes last year. Is that what you think probably for 2019?
Ooh, 2019 in terms of building permits, we had 50. So I saw 38 single family detached homes that were new, And I saw 12 for the multifamily of the easy living. That's the building permits. So in terms of new homes, it's hard how you would want to determine a new home in terms of a lot being sold or somebody moving in and activating water or somebody having a building permit. So there's different ways you can measure new homes. I know that the front end clerk, the customer care clerk, Sarah Simon, who's who's been with us now for a while, she's been turning on a lot of water. So there's been a lot of water activations. We're seeing a lot of water services being activated. And it's really good for us. But in terms of building permits, the exact numbers for single family were 38 last year, and then multifamily were 12.
And then, sorry to sidetrack, but makes me think of on the water. Are we starting to make that more user friendly where they don't have to come in, where you could scan an ID and pay, or, I know every other utility require that, and I feel like we're antiquated doing that.
I would have to agree on terms of the services and the software, but that's kind of a different matter in terms of what I'm able to do. Utility billing is a completely different software process, and that's handled by a different department. But right now, I'm pretty excited that we've passed that permit portal last year, and we're working adamantly to get that up to date. So that's going to be pretty exciting. We should have that roll out, sort of a tentative live Goddard permit portal on May 15th. So that's pretty exciting. And then everyone will be able to pull permits, submit them, review them, approve them, and pay for them all online. And those, who prefer to do the paper way can still do the paper way. But in terms of utility billing, I have, that's completely out of my purview.
Jamie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right now, there's a law called the red flag that we have to check people's ID in person, but I can check into maybe going more towards online setup.
Yeah, like just scan or email or however send a picture.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Are we ready for me?
I believe so.
All right. Hello, council. This is the Public Works Department first quarter report. I want to give a little heads up on our staffing initially here to start this off. Currently, we have 7 Public Works employees and 1 open position. We did advertise the position, conducted interviews, and offered the position to a gentleman. Unfortunately, that was right as the COVID-19 outbreak happened. And over the course of the month following that, we lost contact with him and we ended up withdrawing our offer. And so that position is still open. I'm looking to, after we get word on the budget situation, the revenue forecast in June, to re-advertise, conduct some interviews, and hopefully fill that position. During the COVID-19 outbreak, I have split my crew basically into 2 smaller crews and sequester each crew from the other. So they, in case someone were to contract the virus, I didn't have the entire Public Works Department home on quarantine. Fortunately, no one has contracted it. And it looks like we may have passed the hotspot of the virus. So on May 11th, I am going to go ahead and bring those 2 crews back into 1 big crew and get back to work. That will allow us to hit some of the larger projects that we've just had to put off due to the crew split up. One is the rehabilitation of 2nd Street, which I will be bringing to the council in the future. Another is we have a small leak at well 7 that we've got to have a pretty big crew out there, and we hope to repair that in the next 2 weeks or so, weather permitting, of course. Now, Public Works by the numbers here. Some things were a little slowed because of the COVID and the splitting of the crew into 2 separate crews. We filled 12 potholes. We swept 62 lane miles. We've installed 22 signs. They have not planted any trees yet, but Brian and I were talking about that today, and I think we're going to get a plan together to plant some this fall. We did 43 water service shutoffs. We did 307 meter rereads, and this is something that I am wanting to address in the near future as well, and hope to bring an item to council in the future for potentially purchasing more water meters so we can get rid of some of those old ones that aren't functioning properly. We used 38,248,000 gallons of water. We replaced 0 water valves. We've exercised 12 valves and done 162 locates. Currently, our average well depth is 39.5 feet. And at the wastewater treatment plant, our average daily inflow of influent is 405,000 gallons. And I'm very happy to say in the first quarter of this year, we did not get dinged on any of our KDHE permits, meaning all of our water tests, sewer, wastewater tests and whatnot have come out good. I'm very happy about that. Next slide, please.
Just a question. So what's the results of that? Do we finally know how to run that system?
Well, the guys have had a pretty good hand on that system for quite a while. I've mentioned this in the past at other meetings. We've had an engineer from MIT down. We've had some other people with some vast knowledge in this area, and they always give us kudos on how good our numbers are on our nitrogen and phosphorus and all those types of items that we have to track for KDHE. Now, that said, there are some upgrades and some improvements we could do to the plant that will make it run even better. And we're talking with those folks and putting our heads together to move in that direction. So yeah, we've got a pretty good handle on it. Some of our first quarter accomplishments, we replaced the outdoor lights at the library. It was dark and scary around there when people were coming and going. And so April made the request and we sent some folks over there and put new lights up, put some timered solar spotlights on the back. So when they move to their vehicles in the evening, it's safer. It just overall looks better. We got dinged about a year ago by KDHE for how the inside of our well 7 building was set up. So we went and rehabbed that, which was really inexpensive, just took some man hours, and George Romero did an outstanding job on that. Something else I'm also very happy about is the council approval of the 2 new pickups. I spoke with the dealership, and unfortunately they would have been delivered on March 20th, but the COVID, like everything else, stuck moving them back further. And then we also installed outdoor lighting at the Department of Public Works North Shop. That is where the police have their dog kennels for when they catch dogs that are at large or strays. And it was just really dark around there. The cameras couldn't even pick up if anyone was prowling around out there. So we put some lights up. They look nice. We used LED lights that are low. They put light where they need to and don't broadcast it out a lot to the surrounding neighborhoods, so we don't have any complaints. In the parks, we finally got the sidewalks constructed that connect the 2 playgrounds. Excuse me. And we did 1 reset of the disc golf course for a tournament they had this winter, and we poured a new tee pad. And we are beginning this quarter preparation of the pool complex. Next slide, please. We plan to have that pool ready to open by the 1st, and then we'll just be standing by to see if it is safe to open at that time or if we've got to wait longer. A lot of that depends on what the governor says. On the water and drainage side, you may have noticed we've got some pretty blue fire hydrants around town. We've got a big list of fire hydrants from Sedgwick County Fire Department that they thought needed work. So I've sent a crew out and we're rehabbing those, rebuilding those, and painting them as we go. They work better and they look nicer. So that's always a plus. And we clean and excise water valves in multiple areas of town, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it's very important to assuring that these valves work in the case that we have a main line break, that we can isolate that area and work on that without spilling thousands of gallons of water or creating another problem.
I was going to ask you that, Brooke. I mean, I know previously they had reported. Do you guys track the numbers on that, or can you report the numbers? Because don't you try and do that once a year on everything?
On the valves?
Yeah.
We would like to do it once a year. It can be labor intensive because a lot of times those valve tubes have to be washed out, cleaned out, vacuumed out just to get to the valve if it hadn't been exercised recently. But I would like to do them at least once a year because if we keep them working, it makes our life a lot easier in an emergency situation.
So that's where, if we had one of those jetters of ourselves, that would probably help us out then?
Oh, yes and no. I mean, that's something that, depending on the cost of it, yes and no. It really, maybe. If that's the best answer I can give on that, honestly.
Okay.
But But on fleet side, I mentioned the new pickups that council approved earlier. And at the end of the fourth quarter last year, we bought the new bucket truck. So we sold the old bucket truck on Purple Wave. I think they had to tow that thing out of here, but I think we got $2,700 for it. I can't remember off the top of my head, unfortunately. I should have written it down. Next slide, please. On the streets and right-of-way side, we continually go around and replace sections of broken sidewalk. We get them in largely a lot in Old Town, but we are finding places we replace the section in Seasons. And just anytime we see something crazy, we're replacing it. We had a strange water valve that for some reason when it was constructed, it was sticking 4 or 5 inches out of the sidewalk in Seasons. So I had the guys go over there this quarter and shorten that valve and replace that section of sidewalk. We also installed no parking signs at the trail entrances. A lot of folks are parking right there at the head of the trail and blocking movement there at those trailheads. So we put signs up to try to keep them away from that area.
Is that something we would ever want to rock and put some parking? I don't know, Larry, do you have any input on that? Is that something we could ever even do, is add some parking on like 183rd, maybe 100?
Well, I think we end up with a right-of-way issue on that. And I don't know if we can actually make it bona fide parking. I can look into it though.
Larry, what's your thoughts?
Which end are you talking about?
183rd, just over here, south of Walmart. People are always parking right there. You put up no parking signs, but is there room where we could get with the landowner or something and develop a parking lot there? I don't know if it could just be rock or what. I don't know. If you want to talk to Prairie Travelers and see if we could even do it, I don't know. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I'd like to maybe offer that.
I can talk to the Prairie Travelers next time they meet.
Okay.
Postponing their meetings because of the virus.
Yeah. It's just an idea we could mention. I don't know if it's possible or not. You know, I don't want to put a parking lot in that's not allowed, but it was something we could look into and ask the question.
Will do.
Mr. Mayor, it may require us also getting clearance from Sedgwick County, but I'm not absolutely for certain on that.
Okay.
Then the winter storm response, we had several storms that rolled in that didn't turn out to be much this winter, but we obviously prepared and we applied the brine to the roads. We had one incident where we were the only municipality in the area to apply brine, and thankfully we were the only one without problems. So I guess for every hit, you get a miss every now and then. And I feel like we did a acceptably good job at winter storm response, but that's something we're always going to be trying to up our game with. And then of course we keep street sweeping every time, that should happen every single quarter. As long as it's above freezing, we can sweep the streets. At the wastewater treatment facility and sewer, last meeting, the council approved the renewal of our sledge hauling contract. And as I mentioned before, and by the numbers, we met KDHE effluent requirements 100% of the time in this quarter. Next slide, please.
Well, that's something really big to celebrate, because I know we used to have so many problems, and I'm really proud of those guys for getting that up and running right.
They work hard and they put their heads to it, and they know the plant, and just stay on top of them. We stay consistent, and it has made a big difference.
Yeah, because I mean, I appreciate it just because, you know, when we're on the council, everybody's always they were always asking for money to help fix it, to pay this chemical, and it's nice that it's running efficiently.
Yes, and it is, and it's, yeah, I have to say they're doing a heck of a job. So on our second quarter preview, something that I mentioned, just touched on earlier, is the rehabilitation of 2nd Street. We have a plan where we want to, it'll still be dirt, but we want to recrown it and add some more material and really bring it up to par that it should be. Even though it's a dirt road, it can be a much better road than it is. So that'll be something I intend to bring to council, hopefully with this quarter, and get it done this quarter. We will complete cleaning the pool and prepping it to open when it's allowed to open and by state guidelines. Also, something that's going to happen soon is sod and seed around the playgrounds at Linear Park where we have dirt, so we can keep some of the mud and stuff off the equipment. That should happen really within the next couple weeks.
On the pool, Brooke, is that something we want to go ahead and kind of plan for June 1st maybe, and how we have a date to plan for?
That is what Thatcher and Brian and I had talked about that today, and that's that's our tentative date. That's my goal, for us to have it ready to open and have it filled and everything, and then we can always, you know, wait from there according to guidelines from the governor.
I guess as long as you're being proactive, because you know when it's ready, they're going to want to swim.
Well, and it's,
So that's a very popular location.
and by June 1st, 30 individuals will be allowed. So one of the things that, and we'll talk about it in our final agenda item coming up, but you're precisely right. And I know I've had a couple of conversations with members of the governing body on the pool, because we know it's a service that some folks expect. So we can go into greater detail on that, but Brooke and his guys are on top of that.
Thank you.
And something else that we're going to get done this quarter is to get some of that lime scale cleaned from the splash pad. I've reached out to some other people. We're going to look at some different cleaners to do that. Maybe it'll make it easier, and we can get all that off there and maybe do it more often and keep that from building up. But we've got some ideas and hopefully some tricks up our sleeves for that one. Next slide, please. That might be my last one. Well, I believe that is. Are there any questions from the council?
I have a request. The only thing that if you could give us a fleet next time, or even whenever you get time to do it, like I'd like to see what your fleet is, how many miles, and the age on everything, and kind of give us a condition too.
Okay, I can put together something and just give it to Brian. He can email it to the council if that will work.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think I like to track the fleet. It just I think it helps us know what to expect, and when budget season comes up, we know that as well.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
And maybe even a listing or projection of, what you think will need replaced when, and if there's other items that you feel we need as a city.
I can do that as well. And I know Brian and Matt have mentioned that when we talk about the capital improvement items for the budget, that we will do that, but I can start putting some numbers together and relay them to you all.
I think over on the Brazos streets, before you get to Richard Road, there's some issues on that road bed where it's all broke out. Is there any plan on restoring that?
On Brazos?
Yeah.
Not in the short term, but I will definitely put that on my list and go look at it. I know we've got a lot of our asphalt roads that need to be rehabbed, and we really need to focus on an area, and let's do the base, let's do everything so that way it doesn't alligator crack right away immediately. But I can definitely look over there at Brazos for sure, and we can get it on our short list and get a
I'm thinking it was Brazos when I walked by there, but it was a big patch, probably about 8 feet long and about 3 feet wide, that looked like it was totally broke out.
Was it a street cut? We do have plans this summer when it warms up to get somebody in with hot mix and those street cuts for utilities. We normally put AB3 in there and let it all settle and let it settle for quite a while. And so we don't put asphalt immediately. It just makes a dip there in asphalt. And so there is a plan to hit several areas around town with hot mix and roll them and put actual asphalt in those utility cuts this summer. So I will look at Brazos. I can't think off the top of my head where that cut would be, but I will definitely look at it and we'll get it on our list.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Brooke? Okay. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, I have the first quarter financial report for you. You got a forward slide. Here we have the all of our beginning and ending fund balances for the quarter with receipts and expenses for each fund. Our the only item of note here, advanced slide, please. As you can see, we have still got a very high balance in the street fund at 1.1 million. That's actually more than our entire budget for the year. So we're intentionally going to spend down some of that this year. And I've talked about that in previous financial reports and during the budget last year. Forward slide. And you see here too, we still got, go back one. Thank you. We're still seeing lower than anticipated revenue in the water utility fund. However, that downward trend on that cash balance should improve as the year goes forward, assuming there's no impact on the water and sewer utilities from the COVID impact or from the COVID pandemic, which there could be, but I don't really see it being the big of a deal. We made a debt payment during one of our debt payments during the first quarter in water, and so that's why that fund balance is down lower. Go forward slide. This is a revenue expense history for the general fund. As you can see, revenues are higher. That was because of captured increased valuation from property taxes, and also we're ahead a little bit on sales tax as well, and we'll see that going forward. Currently, we are at 18.72% of budget through the first quarter for expenditures, so we're right on pace with where we thought we'd be. Forward slide. You can see here just general fund revenue history through the first quarter, right where we expect it to be. Forward slide. And this is overall sales and use tax through the first quarter. We've had a bit of an increase in the compensated use taxes, which are essentially those are sales taxes that were collected out of the district or through online sales, typically is what those are. Forward slide. It's just a breakdown of our general fund tax revenue. The biggest chunk there is property taxes because we get about half of our overall property tax distribution during the January distribution. We'll get another big distribution in June, and we'll see at that point what impact the COVID outbreak has had on our property tax collections. The league has told us to expect somewhere in the neighborhood of 15% decrease in property tax revenue, but we're not going to know that for sure until we get to that
decrease.
June yeah, they're telling us to expect it, but that's like their statewide.
Everything for Goddard was like 20% or 10% at least.
Well, we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to have hard numbers on that until we'll have a better idea of it when we get our June distribution. But again, too, we're a relatively affluent community compared to the state as a whole, so we may not see as big of an impact as the state itself is anticipating.
When will you know the 2020 property tax estimate, or can you get that to us?
We'll get it. I'll get it to you as soon as I can. We'll know that. Usually they've been getting it to us historically they've given it to us the 1st of July, but since the tax has gone into effect, they typically get it to us by the 1st of June. So we'll have an idea of that before we give you the general fund budget presentation.
Okay.
Forward slide. It's just a graphic representation of general fund tax revenue historically. Forward slide. It's a breakdown of general fund expenditures to date through the first quarter by department. Nothing really outstanding here to see. Pool expenditures obviously are very low, and they may continue to be since we're probably opening late this year. Forward slide, please. And just a breakdown by type of expenditure based on our cost centers. But you can see most of our expenditures in general fund go toward public safety, that's the police department. Forward slide. Just the same revenue expense history for our water fund. It shows there's charges for services that it's significantly lower, but that's only because of the way that the billing for the month of March hit this year. All of that revenue is basically it's our calculation for that, because both of our utility funds are set up on a accrual basis rather than cash basis like the rest of our funds are. So that the actual charge for services are higher than that, and that'll flush itself out in the April financials, which you'll have at the next meeting. Forward slide. Just a revenue expense or a revenue expenditure and fund balance breakdown for the water fund over the past 3 years through the first quarter. Forward slide. And we have the same here for the sewer fund. Expenses to date are 29% of total expenditure, and that includes about half of our debt service expenditures for the year. So that's why it's a little bit higher than you would see typically, because we make those payments once in the first quarter and once in the third quarter. Forward slide.
Green's hurt my eyes. Is yours forward?
Forward slide, please. That's just another graphical breakdown of the water and sewer revenue and expenditures. Street fund expenditures through the year were 13.39% of budget on the expenditure side. Tax revenue is about where we expected it to be through 2 distributions for one for the street fuel tax and one for the state fuel tax, one for the county fuel tax. And then we've done a quarter of the general fund transfer into the street fund. Forward slide. Again, like I said, that's a very high fund balance that we've had for the last couple of years, and we'll be spending some of that down this year by withholding some transfer from the general fund. Forward slide. That's all I've got, unless you have any questions about any of the financials or more detail you'd like that I can send along.
I have a question on the transfers. So
Right.
Are those budgeted transfers, or can we get a list of like anticipated transfers just so we know what to expect throughout the year?
Well, the transfers that we put in the budget are the street transfer, for example, is considerably lower than it was last year. It's about 3/4, and we budgeted that to be about 3/4 lower than it was for 2019.
We address transfers at the time of our budget season.
Yeah, budget that, because the way that we record them as expenditure, so they have to be included in the budget. But I can get you a breakdown of what the transfers are for the year, what the anticipated versus
I could recap.
budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Presenter will be April Hernandez for the Goddard Public Library.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about our first quarter accomplishments and thank Brooke and his team for getting our lighting situation outside fixed, because it was a little dangerous out there. We were tripping over parking things. So our first quarter accomplishments, we got the Friends and Foundation 501c3 paperwork. We received a grant from the Public Library Association for an inclusive internship initiative, which basically is $3,900 to pay an intern for the summer. And then there's 2 trips included in that, one to Washington, D.C. and one to Chicago for the intern and a staff member. That is on hold until 2021. They felt that with the travel and stuff, they wanted to go ahead and let the ones that they chose have the opportunity, but they were going to wait a year. We were doing traveling story time at both Amelia and CDS preschools and letting them check materials out. We started working with an architect a little bit to kind of see if what we could do with the building and space we have. We completed an annual survey. I received a grant from the Kansas Library Association to attend the Kansas Leadership Center training, which is on hold. I was supposed to do that next week, but they haven't told us when they're going to open that back up. But I also attended a management training, and we moved a lot of our programming online, and we've met all of our strategic plan goals. Looking ahead at Q2, mainly what we're going to try to do is get back to normal. Hopefully we'll be able to have normal programming and things by July 1st is our hope. So right now that's really our goal. We did also get a grant from the book festival for technology, and so we're going to be adding some virtual reality headsets, an Apple TV, so we can do some virtual and augmented reality story times too. So that's going to be coming. All of our numbers, as you can see on here, are improving. Our interlibrary loan numbers are up enough with being in the CanShare consortium that I think we'll be getting some more funding next year in our grant that is geared toward the interlibrary loan part. So that's exciting. Forward slide. Our annual survey, we put that out in January and ran it through mid-March to try to get the community members suggestions for things and what they were liking and what they were wanting to see. We're going to be doing that obviously every year now and hopefully get it out in December at the end of the year and kind of just run it December, January this next time. Basically, the biggest thing that was said in that was they really enjoy our programming and the puppet ladies, they love the puppet ladies. And but the biggest thing was to make their experience better was they really would like to see a bigger space. So hopefully we can work towards that. And then our other big need is a vehicle to transport materials for our outreach, because we're doing outreach at 2 preschools right now. Well, obviously not right now, but we were, and then at the 2 retirement facilities. And I know that Carrie's already got requests for the fall from 2 churches that have preschools that they want her to come there too. So, and we're hopeful that we'll get some more of the elementary school. I think there's one other elementary school that we could do their preschool, and hopefully we can get in there too. So, but we did receive good suggestions on additional programming, and we will be looking into providing those. Our program attendance and social interaction were the top 2 reasons community members came. You can forward slide. Forgot I need to. So that shows what the programs and the social interaction were the 2 big things that people come to the library for. And you can go ahead and forward slide again. We had a 16% increase in circulation over Q1 of 2019. Obviously with COVID, our numbers are going to be lower than this month. In April was really low, but hopefully we can make some of that up. We had a 1,614% increase in books loaned through ILL, 172% increase in programs offered, and 36% increase in attendance. So our numbers look really good. And then in your packet, you also have the strategic plan. And I included in there how we've met those goals. And what we're doing. There's a couple that we're still working on. And some things that the school is doing that we won't try to duplicate, such as working with Wichita Tech and stuff. We can work with them in different ways than what the schools are doing. So we're going to look into doing that. But with Carrie coming on, we've been doing, it's helped tremendously, and we've really pushed our online programming, and we've had really good response with that. We've been doing online story times and just running some little fun things. Right now we're doing a picture, not really competition, but just sharing of what some of your favorite things. So everybody's been really liked it. We've worked with Tanganyika to go out there and actually do a story time. Carrie went out and read with the kangaroos. We're supposed to go out next week and read with the giraffes if the weather is nice. So we'll continue to do things like that. We're looking into other ways to add more online programming, maybe some gaming options. So because a lot of our summer reading stuff will probably wind up being more virtual. But you guys can read through the strategic plan thing and sheet and see what we've done and what most of these things are things we're going to have to continue to do for a long time. I mean, that's stuff we should be doing all the time anyway. So we'll keep working at it and hopefully keep increasing our numbers.
Thank
So
you, April.
You're welcome.
One question I have, or comment I have kind of for you, and a question from council. You know, I know that carpet is pretty ratty over there, and I don't think it resembles Goddard very well. I didn't know if the council or Brian, you'd let me know if I'm in the right direction here. If we could take $20,000 out of Parks and Rec and somehow budget for some new carpet and maybe some furniture options for them up there in the front, or, you know, redesign those boxes where you could put some padding on them or something. I just wanted to mention that and maybe get a couple suggestions from the council. And is that something that you would want, April?
My big want is a whole new building because we don't have any space, but
Yeah.
yes, it would be nice if it looked better for what we have for now. So
I know. And that's the thing. We can continue to talk about a new building, but we've got to get some kind of strategic plan and budget ahead of the way. I think we're still probably a couple of years from that, but I think we need to start the conversation now and start working towards that.
yes, definitely, because we have outgrown that space incredibly.
And Mr. Mayor, this is Brian. We'll certainly look at putting together some proposals and getting a bid for some program options for the 2020 revised and the 2021. So that way we can scenario gameplay with outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Council to consider at that time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Item H4 is discuss operation of city facilities during COVID-19. And we kind of already touched on this earlier, and that's the pool, because that's the biggest thing that we really have going right now while we're in the phased rollout. The one item I did want to note is I misspoke when I said June 1st, 30. June 1st is 90 people. So after June 1st, 90 folks are allowed to be in an area where they can still maintain that 6-foot separation. So as we touched on with Brooke, one of the items that we're looking at is the pool operations, staffing, and how do we go about safeguarding groups, both before a pool opens up, after pool opens up. Do we need to look at fielding additional lifeguard staff for essentially not only watching the kids while they're in the water, but making certain that they are maintaining their spacing? So, you know, whether that's us painting, you know, a 6x6 or an 8x6 or, you know, 8x8 squares along the back fence to make sure that there's sufficient space between folks, or the kids realize the spatial orientation and distance from others. And then also just talking with the lifeguard staff to make sure that they are educated and informed on what the protocols are and will be, and have sufficient personal protective equipment to conduct those operations. And we were thinking that we could start with swim lessons around June 1st, and then look at by the 15th, maybe having full operations. But it's it's up in the air, and we don't have a whole lot of facts. We've even been checking with the CDC on what sort of requirements are necessary for the closed system with the pool. It's chlorinated, so that should work. So the highest probability of contact is making certain that that when the users of the pool are not in the water but out of the water, that they're maintaining that distance, that the pool configuration for the restrooms and washrooms are not all that great for social distancing, but I think we could certainly make that work. And you know, we're trying to make sure that, as I know, I've had discussions with multiple members on the council about the fact that this is something that we can do to provide a value and a benefit to the community in a time when folks have been kind of shut down. And during the summer season, particularly when parents are at work, they look to the pool and the parks as a way for the kids to have an outlet. So that's kind of what staff's thought was as we move forward. And then City Hall staying restricted access until the May 18th goes to phase 2. And so at that point, we would go ahead and open up like we normally do. There may be some operations such as the fingerprinting and whatnot that would still have to be foregone, but by and large, the common area and whatnot would need to be making certain that folks could keep their distance but still be able to utilize the customer service stations for City Hall. And that's our thoughts. We wanted to make sure that that's kind of along the lines of what the council was wanting. If there was questions or something that we hadn't quite thought of, that we made sure that we were going down the right path to ensure that we're providing the services that the citizens and the governing body expect us to have going forward. I know we still don't know a whole lot, but I think it's safe to say that as we come out of this, any sort of isolation may be, pocketed and for durations of no more than 14 to 21 days. So I'll turn it over to the mayor and council for additional comments and direction.
A couple comments. I mean, I guess could we still consider the May 18th date maybe? And then also, would that be okay for the splash pad? Though I don't need to answer now. Just a couple mentions. The one thing I think we're going in the wrong direction with, I don't think lifeguards should be involved with monitoring social distancing, because nobody's going to die of COVID immediately, but they will die immediately if they drown. So I want to make sure our lifeguards have one job, and that's to make sure that nobody drowns. It'd be unfortunate if they're worried about breaking up a couple of groups of people and somebody drowns in the meantime. So I think we'd be going the wrong direction with lifeguards monitoring that. That's just my thought.
I think you're certainly correct in thinking that their primary purpose would be. That was why we said we would need to look at additional staffing so that we had guards not only monitoring the water, but also having a rotation just like they do for their stands to make sure that the kids are maintaining their distance. Because I think there would be an expectation of the parents that when they send their children there, that we're at least presenting a framework with which the kids could utilize some common sense, but also that there is that ability to remind them that they need to keep those distances if it should happen. But you're exactly right. The water and the drowning is the primary purpose.
Yeah.
So May 18th, what, I guess, are we allowed by the governor's order, are we allowed to do on May 18th?
No more than 30 people.
Okay, no more.
That's why I'd say with the splash pad, would we want to have open that by then?
Splash pad, we certainly can, and I'll turn it over to Thatcher to discuss the semantics on that. And again, we would at that point ask that the parents and the children be aware of that distancing, but I'll turn it over to Thatcher for the details.
Yeah, this is Thatcher. Just real quick. There was no intention of, even before all this, opening the pool on the 18th. I've kind of been in touch with the manager who's returning from last year, and she wouldn't even be able to start really until the 22nd. And we hadn't even really planned to fully open until after Memorial Day weekend or even June 1st. So I think kind of the intention since this all started is to maybe open tentatively around the 1st, but we'll probably go ahead and get the lifeguards started training, that week after Memorial Day, so we can get them fully trained on the safety and everything. So.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Brian, and I will say that a lot of communities are opting not to open their pools this year until more is understood about the virus, as well as the potential for having a vaccine to combat it, just simply because the nature of the lifeguards, you know, if they have to go in and make a save, they're going to be initiating close physical personal contact with folks that could create an exposure and a potential liability for the city going forward in the event that they could trace that exposure. But I think that as we move back to normalcy, it's just something that we'll have to keep in mind, that, you know, there are ways that this could go sideways, but the overall intent and purpose is to try and provide a service and to make certain that we're providing something to the citizens that they quite honestly count on each summer.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, a few people have reached out to me, and then I've seen on the Goddard Facebook community page, they're asking questions, and I just simply asked what it is that they want to do, and they want it open. This is just my opinion. I think, of course, we're going to have to follow the governor's order, whatever that is, but I think if we have the ability to open up, you know, just to 30 people on the 18th, we need that normalcy in our community. And I'm not for hiring extra people to regulate social distancing. Ultimately, it's the people's responsibility to regulate themselves and to take care of themselves. I don't want more government interference in their lives. So that's just my opinion. And as soon as we can get back up and going and, you know, start acting more like a community again, I'm all for it.
I would agree with Hunter. I mean, it's kind of hard to go to any kind of event and be told, you know, what to do. I mean, I think if a family's there and, you know, I think somebody ordering people around could be taken the wrong way.
This is Sarah, and I'm in the same boat. I don't feel that I think it's the person's responsibility to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Put up signs that say, please make sure to practice social distancing. But I'm sorry, little kids, they're in a pool, they're not going to pay attention to, they have to, I mean, are we going to draw squares in the pool? You can't, you know, that's not something, and I don't feel it's the lifeguards' responsibility, even with extra staff, to be doing that. It's not going to go over well, I don't feel. And I think we're kind of at this point, and, you know, the people in our community are at the point where, okay, we'll follow the guidelines, but we want to make our own decisions for ourselves at this point. And people can choose to come to the pool or not come to the pool if they feel like it's still a risk. My question is, what date does the pool normally open traditionally when we're not in this type of situation?
I mean, last year, I don't believe the pool opened. I don't know the exact date. I could return to you on that. I don't think it opened before Memorial Day. That's kind of when these kids are getting out of school usually. We have some returning from college. So like Natalie, our pool manager, she's not even going to be done with school until the 22nd. And then we usually have her down for at least 4 or 5 days getting the pool ready. And so as far as the opening, I don't think even the phasing in plan affected that date. Our tentative date is still after Memorial Day, but likely June 1st will be the best date to go ahead and get that opened up. So
I actually would have a little bit of concern about opening the pool up before we know much more, because from what I understand, it transfers even in chlorinated water in a pool system like ours. So I don't know. I think we should exercise some caution on opening the pool up too quickly, because I don't want to be making headlines on creating the next hotspot or whatever of getting everybody sick.
One of my thoughts is that you're going to be having only so many people allowed, including lifeguards in that fenced-in area. And so how do you dictate who gets to come into the fence? And if there's people standing outside of the fence, you're gonna have a lot of unhappy campers. And I think that's gonna create a bigger problem than just leaving it closed, because they're gonna be lined up at 5 o'clock in the morning wanting to be the first ones in there.
Well, 90 people.
They can hold 9.
Yeah.
in that fenced-in area.
What's our average attendance? Do we know?
I don't think typically attendance is anywhere near 90 people.
It's like 40. I mean, there's no.
We'll double check the capacity, but I don't even think the capacity for the entire pool would be 90 people. I think it's closer to 50, but again, we'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it's
you.
30, it's 30 up until June 1st, right?
Yeah, and I think June 1st is the
Yeah.
time it's open.
Yeah, on June 1st, it opens up to gatherings of 90 people or less.
Right, right. I mean, I would agree with Sarah. I mean, we should only open it up like when we opened it up last year. You know, don't do anything too crazy, but just stick to the normal plan. And then we also, I guess, we have to follow the governor's orders. That's just what we've got to do and deal with, so. That's my only comment.
Yeah, and then my other thing was the city hall operations. It seems like everything should be normal because you've got the shields up there. And I guess if you want to declare no fingerprinting until the spring, until September or something like that, I think that'd be fine.
Another good point, I guess, being made is, I guess this virus doesn't survive during the heat. So it might be even a safer place to be outside in the pool in the heat, you never know.
Mm-hmm.
So. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else?
What's the lead time on getting the pool ready before it does get opened? Or is it already underway of being prepared?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear
go ahead,
you.
Brooke.
Okay, it's probably going to take a good 5 working days to get it ready to open. As I mentioned in my first quarter report, I had to split my crew up into 2 separate crews due to the COVID-19, and it has protracted our ability to get some of this work done. It is on the front of our priority list, so we're back to work on it. So I'd say 8 days.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, I think that pretty much gives us our direction on the consensus of the council, and I think we can proceed with the next agenda item if there's no additional business, Mr. Mayor, on the COVID discussion.
Yep. Go ahead. Thank you.
The administrator's report. Oh, the Star Bond, we've had no additional disbursements since the last meeting, and we are almost 85% expensed with 15.5% remaining. We have not received any requests yet for additional funds or project expansion at this time. Just a view of the ball fields, which are ready to be used, and a Friday image of the site, which you can see along the right-hand side there. The roof trusses that are being staged to be installed. So it won't be long, and the next phase will be the roof structure going up. And then after the roof structure is complete, they'll begin work on the interior after the roof is in place.
Will you email us that development again so we could, like, whatever the last architecture thing you had, just so we could kind of look over the plans again? Because I was just curious to what it's going to be.
Yeah, I'll forward the. I'll have to track it down, but I'll certainly do that, sir.
Thank you.
Arbor Creek, work continues on phase one. There are 55 homes in phase one. The only thing remaining at this point is the paving, which is essentially done. There's 2.9 million in special assessments with an estimated average home value of 300,000. That'll generate 1,150 in our current property tax mill levy for municipal use, which generates, if the average home value for phase one would be 63,250, and at full build out, that would generate $281,750. Out of the 245 lots, 55 of which are phase one, 12 lots have already been sold. So that means that there's 43 lots remaining in phase one and 233 total lots remaining for additional phases. Current work includes the paving, and what I'll do here is show you some pictures of the development, but I wanted to point out that we're also working on a change order for backfilling, which essentially takes topsoil or fill dirt from the lots that abut the road and then level that into grade according to the plan. And the paving contractor, which traditionally does that, requested an additional, essentially we've gone out for additional bids for that. It's under the project authorization. So we've got an $8,300 bid, which saved us $35,700 by not utilizing the existing contractor by doing that. Here's the view. You can notice the image on the left is the realigned roadway that was approved at the last council meeting. And this is looking south across 23rd with the spec homes on the right-hand side there. And then how the road goes back and then bends back to the left, which on the right-hand side, you can see how that kind of jogs around, and then there's the roundabout. So the community center for the development will be kind of in that roundish area there where the big circle's at. So
Can you go back a slide on that change order?
Yes.
Can you send us the financials where we're actually saving money? Like, can you send that original bid and then send that bid with it when you have it? So we can see the
I
savings?
certainly can.
Okay. It just didn't make sense why the dirt, how you're saving money, but it's a change order. I didn't understand that.
And I can let Harlan or Brooke expand on that in greater detail, but the long and the short of it is there was an issue with the grading dirt between the developer and the engineer. And when they asked for some additional work, the markup by the paving contractor was such that it ended up being, let's see if I can find it.
Because I remember Harlan saying something about those berms to me before, that they were going to tear into those berms when they were paving or something like that. I just want to make sure it didn't have nothing to do with those berms.
That I couldn't tell you if it had anything to do with topsoil from the berms being used elsewhere or not, but
because Harlan, do you remember when you talked to me about that? When you first had that conversation about them being gung-ho about getting the paving done before spring and parade, and you had warned them that, to make sure that you guys won't be getting in or out of there because of the berms or something like that. Is that what happened?
I don't. Harlan, are you on the call, sir? I don't see him here now.
Okay, I thought he was on. Okay.
But Brooke may be able to speak to some extent on that.
Is that something you talked to Harlan about, Brooke?
Well, I've talked to Harlan about it, and I've been on site with pretty much all of the meetings. And essentially what has happened here is in the engineering of the property and the dirt work and grading and whatnot and putting the utilities in, the dirt that is normally there lifted up and put in the parking space off the crushed rock base, that is graded up off of the crushed rock base, the curbs are put in, and then the dirt is just bladed back in to backfill the curbs. It was engineered and done differently on this project. And as a result, that dirt is not available on that site. to backfill those curbs. So what had happened is the engineer and the developer spoke with their paving contractor, and the paving contractor brought forth a change order that involved, that is their version of the cost of bringing the dirt to the location and blading the dirt in. And the change order was high, and so the developer and the city decided to go a different route and look into alternate methods to getting that dirt on site to be bladed in. And that is the change order that Brian has brought to council, which is significantly cheaper than the Kansas paving change order.
Okay, but I guess why was it not in the original bid? I guess that's where I keep going back.
Well, you would have to ask the developer's engineer for that.
Yes, exactly, because it was just engineered and done a little differently than normal.
Essentially, Kansas Paving charged a 45% burden cost. And so that's where the savings is at.
So it's still costing more.
I'm happy to bring you a change order at the next council meeting requesting an additional $44,000 in expenditures.
I mean, that's well, what were you guys doing?
But under our current purchase policy and the approved project, because of the change order size, staff could approve that project and have it en route or underway within the next 5 to 10 days.
I mean, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you're going to do normally. I thought whatever you guys do. I was question about the savings on it and then why it was done. Because it looked like to me like, because I just remember Harlan telling me that he didn't want to tear out those berms for them to do construction while he was doing the paving or something like that. I just want to make sure I wasn't confused on that.
Yeah, really, the curb backfill and the berms are really not related in this situation there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Clover Leaf, work continues on Clover Leaf. Essentially what we're waiting on now is the paving. And we had a pre-construction conference. Brooke and Harlan were present. I was on the state COVID-19 call during this time, so I was unable to attend. But on April 29th, they had a pre-construction conference, and we're still trying to get a construction date for paving from the contractor. Once that's known, it'll get underway, and we'll certainly keep the council informed on that. I have visited with the developer, Mr. Kelsey, who's also the developer for the Seasons and St. Andrews and Spring Hill. And I'm pleased to say that St. Andrews is now 100% full. So there are no lots available in St. Andrews. And so he's working on Clover Leaf and hopefully another area nearby as well for our community. But Clover Leaf has 133 lots. Phase 1 consists of 50 homes with 22 lots sited along Martin's Court. And we'll have an increase along there of 44 users. And ultimately, we're looking at 2.2 million in special assessments here for Clover Leaf. Elk Ridge, I'm pleased to report, is complete. And the final phase included 24 lots. It brings the total Elk Ridge lot availability to 77 lots. There's currently 53 homes in Elk Ridge. So 31% is available for purchase at this time. Phase 3 included $830,800 in special assessments, with the average home value being $300,000. So you're looking at $1,150 in municipal property taxes that are generated from the average home. We'll look forward to keeping you informed on the lot count for Elk Ridge. Rustic Creek, I'm still working on a development agreement with Rustic Creek. The item of note that we can share over the last occurrence over the last city council meeting is that they have submitted petitions for 3 phases of development to construct the sanitary sewer, water distribution, paving, and stormwater for 20 years and a per lot annual payment with an estimate of 3.5% interest. So the total payment per lot with the city contribution would be $176.20. Again, that's with the $193,916.23 as presented. So I hope to have this item presented on June 15th. Approval of the petitions would essentially, prior to that, would essentially negate the need for a development agreement and obligate the city to the terms of the conditions. So they've essentially petitioned for $368,000 for sanitary sewer improvements, $213,000 for water phase 1, paving phase 1, $637,000 with the city contribution of $23,800. Drainage phase 1 petition $694,900 with the city contribution totaling $170,100, and drainage phase 2 at $368,000. Medical Lodge, there's nothing really new to report on Medical Lodge. They're continuing the build out and work on the inside of those structures that will bring us 24 new users for our water utility system and approximately 80,000 per unit or 160,000 per structure in assessed valuation. The RCUT project, there's nothing new to report. It's plan changes are now at, or plan design review are currently at KDOT for review. They anticipate that taking 6 weeks. Upon completion of the 6 weeks, then at that point, there'll be some refinements and additional design, but we're still on pace for a September 24th bid letting and an October bid award by the governing body. The 183rd and Kellogg Frontage Road and Intersection project, unfortunately, there's nothing new to report here. The city engineer and myself, we've had meetings with KDOT and Trans Systems, and we're working with KDOT as KDOT continues to want to coordinate the intersection frontage road project with the RCUT. And so we're working with them on that timing, and so that we can expedite the project, particularly the frontage road alignment, if at all possible, going forward. I will certainly keep you in the loop as we proceed, and I'm thinking that it will be in June, possibly July, when we'll come back with a coordination agreement for the KDOT Trans Systems work on that project. Items of note for the code. We've had some complaints for neighbors in the 900 block of Oak Ridge Court. And I know I visited with you, Mayor, on this earlier, just as a heads up in case you received some phone calls. They've complained about furniture rehabilitation and furnishing enterprise that's being performed in one of the cul-de-sacs out of a garage. It's like a side hustle, if you will. Code enforcement officer for the city's spoken with the neighbors making the complaint, as well as the individual conducting the operation. I visited with St. Andrews HOA on the matter, trying to facilitate and mediate between the property owners, the HOA. And ultimately what we've got is the property owner agreeing to limit the operation to between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. And I appreciate Micah's time in working with the property owner that has the enterprise that is allowed under our code. And just as reference, it would also be allowed if you were in the city of Wichita to do that. So they've agreed to kind of any type of noise, or when they're using the instruments to construct or refinish or rehabilitate the furniture. They're agreeing to do it between like 8 and 2, just so that one of the neighbors that lives actually outside of the cul-de-sac that is complaining about the noise gets home at 2. So I think they work an unconventional schedule, And so that's part of that concern there. So I wanted to let you know that under our zoning code, Article 6, Section C.4, that it is allowed, but it's also allowed under the City of Wichita's 5.B portion of their occupation code. And then I wanted to make you aware of a plating discussion that we've had with the property owners in the 900 block of 199th Street, and that's that they have some acreage and they've essentially sold off parts of the acreage to family members. So it's still say you had, and I'm using a bad example, but let's say you had 30 acres and then you kind of piecemeal, or you had 40 acres and you kind of piecemealed off 10-acre increments to your children or something so that they can build single family homes on there. By our zoning code, that requires a plat. And, you know, it's essentially a subdivision. And so not only is that within Goddard's, but it's the City of Wichita and Sedgwick counties as well. So we've been trying to work with the property owners to see if there was any way we could work to yes to try and get that across the goal line to accomplish that. There is a structure on site, but it wasn't a primary living structure, so that was an allowed use back before it was platted. So that construction was allowed several years ago. Unfortunately, you know, now that they're building an actual home and we're looking to add additional homes, that a platting would be required unless we change the zoning code to allow for unplatted building permits. So
You have to do the code, or can you do an exception for them as long as the drainage would make sense, or they did
no, and we've tried, we looked at that. That's what I said. We've been in touch with our attorney, and Micah, feel free to chime in if you like. But I did. In fact, Micah and I had that discussion and had talked to Bob on, you know, is there a way that we can work to yes? Is there a way that we can look at this to try and accomplish, you know, to make everyone happy, to create a win-win circumstance?
Yeah, if I may interject just real fast, we worked, as Brian said, pretty extensively. We want to create an amiable experience for everybody, regardless of the situation. And in this particular case, the gentleman was very nice about it. We just had a good conversation, you know, and ultimately, for any new building to be put in, he would have to get it platted. Since he did have an existing building there in 2015 that does have a certificate of occupancy on it, he can put an addition on that. Our zoning code allows for that. He could build another room onto it. But to build a new structure, a brand new structure, he would need to have it platted. And we've really exhausted all the criteria necessary, you know, without, you know, bending or breaking any of the existing zoning codes or state law for that matter. It was pretty extensive. We dove in there pretty deeply. So I don't know what he's going to go forward with at this point. Right now, he may just build an addition because he's allowed to. He may just add a room onto the house, and that's fine. But if he does build a new home, or if any family members decide to move in and build a new home, he's going to have to get it platted. And there's just really no way around it. And as Brian mentioned quite accurately and succinctly, that in fact, regardless of where he was in the county, in Goddard or Wichita, he would need a plat. It's not something that's unique to Goddard. It's, you know, actually runs quite well with state law. So it's nothing personal or nothing about that. And he understands that. I think he was very nice about it. It's just new buildings would require a plat. And if he wants to build a room onto his existing building, he can just pull a building permit since he already has an existing building.
So what complicated is it to get a plat? I mean, does he just not want to pay for the engineering and just didn't want to go through that step?
I can only speculate into his intentions or what kind of reservations he has, but ultimately platting does take quite a bit of time. I mean, as you've seen, Mayor, yourself and the City Council has seen it, every plat requires both planning approval and governing body approval, and then finally a Mylar that has to be submitted to the county and recorded, and it's got to be signed by the mayor, yourself, and Terry Lamont, the city clerk, by myself. You know, there's quite a bit that goes into it. The platting cost itself before the cities, it's not, I wouldn't say it's too extensive, but I think the engineering fees are kind of where most people get thrown off in terms of reservation.
And if you turned it into a PUD, would it still have the same engineering fees?
Oh yeah, I mean, it could be even more, to be quite honest. PUDs are just radically more expensive in terms of design costs and approval process. I mean, platting, I mean, there's just no way around it. Ultimately, if you wanted to turn it into a PUD, that process ultimately would have to get platted. And of course, that process in terms of approval is even longer. I mean, even though we've even shortened it recently and amended our PUD process, it's just, there's no way around it.
Couple more questions. So on the platting, like in Wichita, I know that they're allowing like to build like a second home or mother-in-law quarter on your lot, existing lot.
Yeah.
They have to get platting for that, or is that something different? Like
most of those are already platted. Typically, you're going to see those already being
so
platted.
it's just never been platted. Okay.
This has never been platted.
And it is in the city of Goddard?
It is in the city limits, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's you cleared my questions up. Thank you.
Yeah.
The 2020 budget process, it's hard to believe we're already here. And Matt and I are working on a status quo budget that maintains the same mill levy and presents essentially a status quo budget. I'd like to always remind folks whenever we can that we have the lowest property tax level of any city other than Viola, which lacks any full-time staff and doesn't have a paved road. There's a county blacktop that goes through town, but there's no paved roads in the town. So, we should begin work on the calendar below, and the 2020 assessed valuation notice is received on or around, as Matt had indicated during his report, on or around July 1st. And, we're expecting about a 4% reduction in revenue, and that's a guess. The league, as Matt said, is saying 15%. So if you go best case scenario, 4%.
That revenue just collecting, or is that values?
No, we're saying collecting.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you had indicated, Mr. Mayor, during Matt's report, is we're a new construction, residential heavy. So a lot of our property taxes are escrowed, and most property taxes are escrowed, but even more so for a community like Goddard. And so we'll know right away the extent of the impact of the shutdown when we get our June distribution, because if folks have not been able, we'll get it eventually. It's just, we're not going to get it, or we may not get it all, when we traditionally do. As we get that June distribution, we've collected, as I said in my previous report or in an email with the link, we collect 98% of our property tax with that June distribution. So whatever we get for the remainder of the year is going to be largely delinquencies that are paid over time, and some motor vehicle and whatnot. So what we're looking for going forward is the May 18th meeting. We'll have a review of the capital improvement plan and capital budgets. June 1st, we'll review our utility funds. June 15th will be the non-property tax funds and utility fund follow-up, with July 6th being general fund and other smaller property tax funds, and set a public hearing, with July 15th being the conduct the budget hearing and adopt the 2021 operating budget, which again, at least the staff will present, will be a neutral budget. So,
and I've got a request for Matt, if he would get it to me. If you would, before, like, just over this week, like the capital improvement plan and budget, everything we spent in that, if you could print off all the check runs and somehow receipts, so I could track that down. I know it'll be a lot of paperwork, but our financials really don't ever tell me anything unless I ask a question and have to do the research. I'd like to have, where our finances, and then track it from where we budget to where we actually wrote the check and the receipt. So I would like to see those, just so we can run them through. If you can print them all off for me for what we spent last year. And if you could do that like in sections of the budget.
So you want the entire run of our checks for the year?
Well, I just want, because I want to track, because I can't ever see what the money's spent on. You just see like, it might just say contractuals, you know, I'd like to go into and see what each contractual is and see when we paid it and, you know, the check runs, if it all adds up and the receipt. It can be unorganized, I understand, but because I'll have to track it from each stack, but that's something I'd like to kind of go through.
We have a multi-year fund overview, which gets into like line items, but it doesn't specifically give you a zero-based budget. Now, you can do some more tracking by getting on the our financial portal.
Yeah, maybe I need to sit down with Matt and go through that because I know he's talked about that and I have never been on there. So that's probably what I need to do.
Because we issue tens of thousands of checks
right
every year.
Is there like a summary that you can get the mayor though? Some general accounting report that kind of shows what certain, you know, what expenses go in a certain account and then, you know, so on and so forth. I mean, I'm sure you have an accounts list, right?
Well, we do by Kansas, the way Kansas does budgeting for municipalities is we have pots, if you will. So we got a property tax pot, that's the general fund. We have a water fund pot. We have a sewer fund pot. We have a street pot. And then we have our capital improvement project and what we do, and we can show you, and I think we do show in our budget where those revenue streams or transfers come from. And that is available on our website. We can show you what kind of the big purchase items are, what we spend on cable, what we spend on, by cable, I mean, you know, to Cox Communications for internet.
I mean, the recurring costs, you just need to see that 1 month and you'll understand. But I guess, you know, like on the school board, they gave us check runs every month and you could see all the checks that they paid the bills on. And we don't ever see anything like that. And it'd just be nice to see that.
Well, I would love to have the staff that the school board has to be able to that kind of program.
Their board docs was a pretty good program that they ran off of. That's what they put it on.
So we'll do our best to get you what we can with the platform that we have.
Yeah, if you can just print up a bunch of junk and then I can sort through it too. Just start somewhere and see if that'll satisfy me, I guess.
If you could be a lot more specific about what exactly you want to see, is it just like the capital improvement stuff, or are you looking for
kind of just ground zero? I'm not trying to nitpick anything. I just want to get more of an understanding of our expenses. So then we can kind of go a little more into the budget. That's all. Because the overview just doesn't do it for me sometimes.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, you can just print off a bunch of junk, hand it to me, and then I'll look at it and see if that's enough. But like I said, if I could see some kind of receipts, check runs, at least kind of add them up with our budget or our expenses when we spend money.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it and we can get a better, I can get a better idea what you're needing.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Terry.
if you could maybe get us a copy of like what you're talking about that you get from the school district, we might be able to produce something like that.
Okay. Yeah, very good. I will.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Brian. Was that all that you had?
That's all.
Okay. Larry, what do you have for us? Larry's good. Hunter, you got anything?
I've just got two things. I mean, Brian's pretty much hit it on the decrease in June and the taxes. We might see at 4%. I guess he's just gonna fill us in at once he finds out, I guess, right, Brian?
Yes, sir. Because right now it's just a guess.
Okay. And then the only other thing I had was, and it's just my personal opinion, is I know that we mentioned them earlier, the Goddard Outdoor Power. I know they might be going before the Planning Commission to try to get a variance on some more signs. You know, they have their main sign up front of their business. I believe Micah can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they paid for that permit, right, Micah?
Yeah, they've already paid for the permit for their first sign.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
the business owner that I talked to, he says, you know, by his franchise, he has to kind of advertise the vendors that he supplies. And right now we have a code to where, you know, you can't put a whole bunch of smaller signs. And these are going to be signs that he's advertising the products that he's selling. And so I'm in for, you know, maybe, you know, I'm just going to say I'd like to see the planning commission, you know, lean more towards, you know, giving them that variance because they're a new business here in Goddard. And I understand why our code reads the way it is. We don't want a whole bunch of sloppy signs on a building, but this is so they can actually, you know, function their vendors and so, you know, advertise for them. So that's the only thing I have.
Thank you, Hunter. Sarah,
I don't have anything.
Brent, you got anything for us?
I see. Not at all.
Michael?
No, I do not have anything and appreciate all the work you guys are doing for the city.
All right. I've got a list. Truck parking, I think we need to address that. I've been hearing about it. Just want to put it all the word into you guys. I'm getting complaints from several people all the way from 215th Walnut Street and, you know, the Walmart too. I know Walmart's allowing it, but they really don't have to, and I don't think it's their responsibility. I believe it probably is with our Dillon's warehouse, probably having the issue, but we need to probably work with them and maybe the schools and get a meeting together. And I was talking to Brian earlier about maybe parking on some frontage roads in Goddard and allowing the trucks to park there, maybe on Crown Drive. I also mentioned that truck lot that was there. If the city wanted to get with the landowner there until he sells that or does something with it, that we could rock that and provide parking for trucks just to not cause the problem in town. Those were just some things I thought about. Mention those to you guys and just kind of think about it and come back with some suggestions, or Brian will work on that. The park board, once I would like to get us kind of scheduled to ramp the park board app up in June. I'd like to discuss new park ideas, just fencing, little things, kind of a plan for the new park, just get us all in on the discussion, see what we want to do with the land. I'm sure we'll probably just on holding this year, but it wouldn't stop us all to getting together, planning it with the park board and, you know, whatever input we want. The community center still bothers me because we would find somebody with chipped peeling paint or rotted siding. So I feel like we need to be good at presenting ourselves well as a city. And I think I'm still going to reiterate that I'd like to see us spend probably $20,000 on that building, fixing it up and cleaning it up because it looks bad. And like I said, we wouldn't allow our residents to have a building like that. So I don't think the city needs to continue with it looking like that. The water bill, just want to see if we can get an update on that coming up, Matt. I know we're busy, so in June or something, if we can start the discussion along with the budget cycle. And then also when we do bring our meetings back, see if we can do the streaming services permanently, like the Zoom with the YouTube. I don't know if we just need 1 or 2 cameras with some microphones at each area. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money. If we have to keep it simple, that's fine too, but I do like to continue doing this. And then the carpet in the library, I mentioned that earlier. And that's all I have. Did you guys have any comments on all the stuff I just mentioned?
I don't at all.
I don't, but you did remind me, where are we at with the traffic studies, Brian?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. We are in the process of developing an RFP. Micah has a map and we've got a context out that we'll be distributing after Harlan's given it his once over. It's about an 8-page document that requests for a RFP that will essentially measure all of the major thoroughfares and Oak Street, Walnut, and Main Street in Old Town. So we should have that out and about, because I just reviewed that document tail end of last week, so it should go out here in the next 2 weeks. So we're hopeful that we'll have something to the council in June, July.
Okay. I know
Yeah.
with more people being home and kids not being in school and I've seen the neighborhood Facebook page just going crazy with concerned parents regarding people driving too fast through the neighborhood because all the kids are outside playing. And there's a lot more traffic since nobody's going too far away from home, I guess. They're out, but they're not going a long ways. So just something I think we need to not rush, but expedite definitely so we can get it addressed and taken care of.
So Brian, that's a more internal study that we're doing ourselves instead of.
No, it requires a certified traffic engineer.
Oh, okay,
We
okay,
have to
so
go
I
out
guess,
like PEC, Trans Systems, a couple of it's going to be a large firm that does that. We're not, by state statute, we have to have a traffic engineer on staff to do that, and we don't.
Did we
Okay.
ever reach out to Hayesville and ask what they did to get their speed limit down to 20?
I don't know that they followed the state law, but I'm assuming that if they did it across the board, that they did.
Okay.
okay, okay.
All right. If that's it, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Leland.
Second, Proctor.
Second.
Motion by Sarah, second by Michael. All
Aye.
those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.
You too.
You too.